Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Empowerment Hour. Today we'll be continuing our series on salvation, and today we'll be a little different. We're going to start doing testimonies. So we'll start off with our first guest today, and she'll be sharing her testimony, and we'll ask her a few questions here and there, so you guys can get to know her testimonies, and it could probably help and encourage someone out there as well. So today I'll be your host, Akosia Dapa, and I'll be here with my co-host,
Katrina?
Yeah, she's here. She's back here after a
After,
while.
yeah, after a while.
But today we'll have our special guest, Ruby Anson.
Hello.
Hi.
I'll host sometimes.
She's also part of the empowerment team, so shout out empowerment team. So let's jump into the discussion. Would you like to take it away?
Yeah. So let's see. I'll go with the first question. So, can you tell us a little bit about your salvation story?
Well, I'll say the first one and then I'll say the second one. Initially, I got baptized, Holy Ghost baptism. I did that around the age of 13, but I felt like I didn't really understand the things of God at that time. So I felt like nobody rushed me, okay, but I did feel like I kind of rushed myself. I felt like I was a bit pressured. And I didn't really understand the things of God at that time. I rededicated my life around, I would say about like 20, 21. And that was when I felt like I got a more understanding of the things of God. Just growing up, maturing, and I think that's where, something happened to me along the lines which I'll share later as we go down through the questions. But initially, like I said, I got baptized at 13, but I was not I had not given myself fully to Christ. Mm-hmm. So basically, I was waywardly. Like, I was still living a wayward lifestyle throughout my teen years. So it wasn't until I got to college, I started college, and that's when I started, to understand things of God more. So yeah.
That's actually, I feel like that happens a lot because I see, like, even for me personally, I remember when I got baptized,
yeah,
I just did it because it was like, oh, we're baptizing people who want to be baptized.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I want to be baptized.
Yeah.
So it was like, I wasn't really like thinking much of it after baptism. It was just like, I want to be baptized.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of times there are people that just get baptized because, there are a lot of people that also understand why they're being baptized, and they act like, they get baptized and then, they dedicate their lives to Christ and everything. But then there are some people that don't understand what they're doing. They're just doing it because a lot of people are doing it.
Right.
So, like, let's say my friend's baptized, I'm not, then I'm going to go get baptized so I can be baptized too.
Right.
And I feel like that's something that needs to be taught, something that needs to be educated. Like, people need to know this before they get baptized. Like, before you get baptized, understand why you're doing it. Because if you don't feel like you're ready to do it, you should not go and get baptized and then go back and live the same life that you were doing, like our sister said she was doing, and I did as well. I don't know about you.
No, but honestly, I did the same thing too. I was like, I believe probably 14 or 15 when I got baptized, and like I kind of really did not. I had some understanding about what baptism was, but like the true intention as to why I was getting baptized was not really there. Like just like you're saying, I went to college and, I was still walking in the faith. I still had my foundation and, as time went on, things happened and, I kind of like backtracked a little bit. But like Priscilla was saying, it's very, very important that we really do sit people down and really teach them the meaning of what baptism is. You don't want people just going to get baptized just because their friends are getting baptized. And I feel like sometimes in the society where we live in, it's kind of normal for like us around that age to feel pressured either by the church or like by family to go ahead and get baptized. And I think once that happened, they expect you to like, to have the full understanding and to walk in that like, but then not everybody does have that understanding like after that, because for me personally, I would say like after that happens, I feel like they just kind of like leave us because they feel like now you've been baptized, you should be like walking in that step, but then there should be some type of teaching afterwards. Right. So
I just want to add, and that's something that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. It's just being pressured by not just society, by your family members, by, your peers. I know that when I got baptized, it was only 3 of us. And the time that when we got baptized, I was just saying to myself, I was like, am I really about to do this? Am I really about to do this? But I know that at that time I loved God so much and I really wanted to be closer to him, but I did not understand. I really just did not understand. But like we all saying here, we all had to go through something.
Exactly.
And then we all we all went backwards to try to go forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I want to, because you mentioned like around the age that you were when you got baptized, you have like, let's say, a day, like a date to like the year. Because I know there's a lot of people that talk about their, I guess, the anniversary of their salvation because like they remember, oh, at this place, this day, at this year, I got saved, and stuff like that.
For me personally, if I'm going to be completely honest, no. The reason I'm saying that is because it's a constant, with Christianity, it's constantly you're rededicating your life to Christ. Because, Bible says that we're born as sinners. So we're prone to sin, and it's like, I don't celebrate that because of the fact that, yes, I'm saved, but I mean, if I don't continue to live a certain type of lifestyle that God is expecting me to live, I will go to hell. And I'm just being honest. But it's not something whereby, like, I have a specific date. I do remember when I did get baptized and everything, but I don't specifically, like, oh, yes, this is the day that, God, this is that, and, no. And it's not something, like I said, every day I'm grateful to God just to be privileged enough to even wake up, to serve him, and to even be in his presence and to do better. So that's just me.
Yeah, for me also, like I remember around the time, I think I could give like a year, but I can't remember like the day, the month that I was, that I rededicated my life and everything. But also, I guess for the people that actually do have like the day and all that stuff, I feel like it's also good because then like they can always remember that, like if you're ever like shaky or anything, like you remember that day where like you gave your life to Christ and why you gave your life to Christ and all that stuff. So I feel like celebrating that anniversary thing is also cool. I just don't exactly so I just remember what he did for me.
Yeah.
I don't really have like a day to track it to. So.
I mean, I don't really have a specific date, but I remember like a year, because I remember I think it was 2015 was when I was like, I had started like to get my life together then, but 2015 before the year ended, I remember really, yeah, I remember vividly. I was like, this is really the time I need to really like give up all that lifestyle and like let everything go. So 2015, like I think it was before the end of summer was when I really got serious. I was like, going back to school, it's not going to be the same lifestyle anymore. I have to take my walk like really serious because I was like, I've lived this lifestyle like already, like everything. There was just,
it's like it doesn't faze
exactly.
You. It doesn't faze you.
Yeah, it really just, I was just like, okay, what am I doing with myself? Like I've been doing all of this and like, I just got to the point, I think I just got tired of it. And I really remember that year was a big struggle for me because I felt like God was like literally far away from me. Like I had to force myself. Like, I realized that year that I was doing so much more to be able to draw closer to God again. And, like that year was like a struggle and it really humbled me a lot. Like I think like me struggling to get to where I needed to be kind of like is the reason why I take my walk and everything very, very serious like these days. And just like Priscilla was saying, it's just like those who have that like date where they celebrate like their salvation, whatever, it kind of like is a good thing for them because you're able to like go back, reflect and be like, I remember, like I really remember, and you can compare that to your life now. So
I was gonna say, before you had mentioned something about struggling and everything, and then you got your life, like started taking your walk seriously. First of all, guys, just because we struggled before we took our walk seriously doesn't mean you should struggle before you take your walk seriously.
Yeah.
You can rededicate your life to God today, you can be saved today. You don't have to go through anything before you do it, because tomorrow is really not promised. You don't want to say, oh, tomorrow, I'm going to wait till something happens before I do it, because you don't know if when that something happens, your life is taken from you.
Yeah.
Then that's too late. And also, by the way, you might hear people refer to me as Priscilla. It's because it's also my name. Don't get confused. There's no other person here. It's also my name.
Yeah. And I guess like to also add up to like what she just said is you know, sometimes like everybody's journey is different. There is a reason why some people struggle to get back to where they need to get to, and there's a reason why some people just don't struggle. You know, some people give their lives, they'll give their life, or they rededicate their life today, and everything like, you know, will go fine for them. Like, you know, they're able to like, you know, just keep moving like that. But some of us like have to struggle. But I would say one thing too that I would say is like be consistent. You know, don't be slowly trying to like move to your vomit again. Like I think we have like a tendency to do that, where whenever you start to get a little shaky, you start like going back to the thing that drew you away. So be consistent.
I just want to say with the whole struggle thing, sometimes it's not like we purposely struggle, but things happen to us. You know, things happen to us. Me personally, I will just say like when my mom left me and my dad, me personally, I felt like all hell had broken loose. Like I was in a very, very low state in my life. I was so depressed, and honestly speaking, I didn't feel like talking to anybody. So it just, certain things that happen in your life causes you to depart, especially if you have like you don't have a very firm relationship with God.
Yeah.
And another thing is like, you know, with college, we all can attest to this. It's a different thing altogether when you go to college, because it's not like, you know, people make fun of, I know that I had friends that used to make fun of me like, oh, you don't want to go to the club. You don't want to, like, you know, they'll make fun of the fact that you don't want to go out, smoke, drink, and do what they're doing. And then they make you feel like you're too much of a goody two-shoes, when it's not really about that. It's about the fact that I'll do that and then what? You understand? Like, you do all these things, and what's the end result? Is it going to, that's not going to better me in any form or way. It's just going to satisfy me for just a quick second, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's also true. I remember there were times when like people would call me grandma, because like I would rather be in my house.
Right.
I watch a Korean
Right.
drama. I'm not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and then like I remember one time somebody had saved my name on their phone as Holy Mother Mary.
Oh.
Because I was like, I mean, if that helps you relate to me better, that's fine. That's as long as if my name is Holy Mother Mary on your phone and that tells you don't invite me to the club, that's perfectly fine with me. There was a point in life where like it kind of bothered me that people like were like, oh, you're too this, you're too that, you're too this. But then I think as I got closer to God, I realized if they're saying that I'm too this, I'm too that, that probably means I'm doing something right.
Thank you.
Because if they were like relating to me the way they used to relate to me and all that stuff, that might mean that I'm still doing the thing.
Still living in your own life.
You know, I'm doing something to make it seem like I'm still doing those things.
Yeah.
But if they're like changing the way they relate to me, then that means I'm doing something right. So I was like, hey, if this is what it looks like, then I'm gonna go ahead. And I remember I had met this guy in college. Back when I went to Montgomery College, I met this guy, and like I forgot how I even met the person. I don't even know how I met him, right? And like we were cool, like, you know, I see him on campus here and there, hi, stuff like that. I transferred to Salisbury. Lo and behold, the same guy. I was like,
wait, what
is this? Why are you following me? You know? And then like, you know, we became close again, you know, hey, and stuff like that. But like I would before I had like rededicated my life.
Right.
So like I knew him, like I wouldn't see him all the time. I just see him like once in a while on campus and stuff like that. But then after I rededicated my life, I started seeing him more often.
Right.
You know, I would see him more often, and like he would ask me questions because like he doesn't see me here or there. I'm like either saying, oh, I'm going to F&F, I'm going to church, I'm doing this. So I would always invite him and stuff, and he's just like, oh, I don't want to go. He would always make excuses, right?
Right.
But then every single time he was in any situation, he would always call me because he knew that I could pray for him.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just like, that's funny because like you would make fun of me because I'm always going to church or I'm always doing this, but you know that in your time of trouble, I know God. So, you know, but I was like, if I pray to God, He'll answer, but if you pray, He won't answer. You know, it's okay. But it's like, you know, it's like even if they make fun of you, at the end of the day, something sticks to them. You know, so they remember.
Oh, yeah.
If anything was to happen, they remember that, oh, there's this person, you know, there's this Christian person in my life that I can go to, that I can talk to. They can give me some good advice and stuff like that. So I'm like, if they make fun of you,
so
let them go ahead.
Yeah.
So be it. Just stand out in this world. You got to stand out as a Christian. I mean, Jesus went through it. If we're saying that we're going to be Christ-like, I mean, Jesus went through it. There's nothing in the Bible that doesn't say that Jesus came on this earth, walked a very wonderful life, that nobody ever insulted him, nobody ever looked down upon him. You can imagine, you know, so.
And Jesus went through way
more.
Far worse than whatever.
Way more.
So yeah, just take
more.
heart.
Yeah.
But like if you would describe your life before Christ.
Hi.
Describe it.
Charlie? It wasn't
what
good, though. It wasn't good at all. My life before Christ. I was doing things basa.
Basa means
no right.
My life was just basa. To be honest, I'm lost for words because, to be honest, it was just a lot going on. I remember at the time I was so desperate to be important in people's life. And I'm an only child. Everybody who do know me know I'm an only child. So I have a lot to offer and share. Like, I'm willing to share because I have a lot. But I don't have a person to share it with except for my father. But honestly, I just remember always following the crowd, always doing things that I shouldn't be doing, you know, just because I want to be relevant. I want my name to be relevant. I want people to be like, yes, I know Ruby for this, that, you know. Like, she hangs with these so people. You know, we say clout. We use people for clout now. That's the word that they use, clout. You know, I was desperate to be relevant for the wrong reasons. And it was not until the realization that, who am I living for? You understand? Like, these are the same people that you do good for. I'm just using this as an example, please. You do good for some people, and when it gets time for you, right? When it gets to your turn and you need them to do a favor for you, they don't even remember not one good thing you've done for them.
Yeah.
And one thing that I realized when it comes to my walking with God, with Christ, God always remembers us. It's we who forget God. It's we who depart from, you know, his path. He remains the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Yeah. He doesn't change at all. We are the ones that change because we're subject to change, you know. But with God, God remains the same. You can challenge him in his word, and he is one person that keeps to his promise. And that's one thing that I came to the realization that, no. Like, I'm dealing with more things than beyond the physical, that nobody can really help me. Yeah. And the only person that can help me is God. And yes, you may go out and have fun with your friends, but when I come back and I'm at home crying to myself, who am I crying to? Again, I don't have any siblings. Sometimes my father's not home. But I'm just saying, it's God that I cry on to, you know? And for him to hear my cries and for him to take the time to bless me countlessly day in and day out is when I realized that, no. I may not see him, but I know he's there.
Yeah.
That's all that, he's all that I need. That's my assurance. So, yeah.
That's a good one, because like when you brought up when you mentioned, oh, who are you living for, like when you realized that, it reminded me, like today on my way to campus, I was listening to the sermon, and it was titled, like, I think The Feeling, and he was just talking about how, like, sometimes we just live our lives, like, trying to please people. We're trying to be relevant in other people's life. We're trying to be relevant, like, we're just trying to fight to get to the top of everything. But then the question is, after we've done all this, like, we need to come back and ask ourselves, who are we doing all of this to please? Because at the end of the day, if you're doing all of this to, like, please people on earth, then, you know, spiritually, what are you doing for yourself?
And I want to add something. People are quick to forget you.
Yeah.
You understand? Like, especially like you're living now, people don't even remember you now. But they try to remember you when you're gone.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the sad part about humanity right now. But God remembers us when we're living
Yeah.
for Him. When we die, we have eternal life, and we continue to live for Him. If that makes sense, you can continue.
Yeah, and I remember like okay, like I remember like that year 2015. I remember the word that kept sticking out. It wasn't a word, but like one thing that God kept like telling me a lot was like be ye separated. I remember that verse in the Bible, like be ye separated, be ye separated. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm separated, I'm not doing the things they're doing. But it was kind of like be ye separated. I said like draw yourself completely away from them. Like, you know, and like it got to a point I had to like completely understand, like, you know, be ye separate does not mean like completely let those people go. Right, but you separating yourself away because like sometimes it's like God cannot bless you among like, you know, their midst. There's something better that God has for you, and God cannot like bless you in the midst of like those people. It's kind of like they cover your grace. Like, let me not say they cover your grace, but like they cover in a certain way where like, you know, the glory of the Lord cannot, like, you
Like
know,
they're blocking your blessings.
exactly, they're blocking your blessings that way. So you have to like completely draw yourself away. But then also got like, you know, you have to remain as well, like not completely cutting people off. Like I remember I saw this quote once. It says like, you know, like know the difference between people to cut off, and like I mean know the difference between when to cut off somebody and when to like keep somebody like in a distance, because you never know, you might be the person you might be cutting off, you might be cutting your blessing away. So sometimes even though like you're separated away from them, like, you know, God can still use your life, you know, to transform them. So yeah, that word kept sticking out to me a lot, and it was like eventually slowly I just kept drawing away. I kept drawing myself away, but I wasn't completely like out of like, you know, their lives and stuff. And like you were saying, like it was just like it got to a point they realized I wouldn't do this. Like it got to a point my friends wouldn't even call me. Oh, come, let's do this. Come, let's do that. It's just they know like if you call me, they're just gonna get the same thing. Oh, I'm not going. Like, you know, even the name Grandma. Like I even got that. My friends started calling me Grandma Pat. Like to today, they still call me Grandma Pat. It's like kind of like a joke now, but like I think they got to understand that where I am in my life now, it cannot like, you know, I cannot associate with certain things like anymore. And it wasn't like I wasn't friends with them anymore. I was still friends with them. But, you know, eventually I let God use my life, like, you know, to transform other people like slowly. So I would say like, you know, you out there, like, you know, you've been transformed, you've been saved again, you're slowly trying to draw yourself away from your friends, like pray to God as well. Like I remember like one thing that I always used to do was I used to just pray and ask God, if anyone is not worthy enough to be in my life, or if there is anyone that you feel like might be, you know, a blockade between me and you, just take them away. Like it was hard for me to cut people out of my life. So but then it got to a point eventually I realized like God was just slowly taking people out and placing me in the community that He needed to place me in. So prayer really does work. So.
And as both of them have mentioned about like having to let things go and having to let people go because you're not in that, I guess like you're not in that life anymore. I feel like it's easier when you come to the understanding that God is all you need. Like that God is all you need. Because if you're not confident in that, then you're still gonna be a little shaky. You know, because there are times when you might feel lonely. But if you know that God is all you need, you're fine. You're not gonna be wanting to go, you know, go find friends or go do this or do that because you feel lonely. You will be content in yourself. And then also surround yourself with godly community. Like once you're saved and everything, you surround yourself with godly community, because if you're surrounding yourself the majority of the time with the same people that you were with, there's a chance that you might end up being dragged back down instead of pulling somebody forward with you. So it's better to surround yourself. You can still have those friends, but if you surround yourself with godly community, if you're ever falling, they can pick you up. You get it? And then if anybody around you that's still living in that life, even like has the mind to, you know, give themselves to Christ, to, you know, move with you to Christ, your godly community can help bring them as well. You know, like it's like the word says it was like basically like two heads are better than one. You know, like because if two are going and one falls, the other one can help them up, right? But if it's just you and you fall, you're by yourself. You know, you can't get up by yourself. So it's like if you're with the godly community, if you fall, they can help you. And then if anybody else wants to, you know, come along, then there's more people to help them along as well, not just you. Because, you know, at sometimes we might, like if we're not fully planted in God, we can still be shaky, and we might end up going back, you know, because of like little things here and there and stuff like that. So be content with God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like you kind of like mentioned being content, and it just reminded me of like, if you truly understand the purpose and the reason as to why you live, and you know who you're living for, then you really don't care about being lonely, because you know no matter if you're lonely, trust me, God is there for you. So like she said, be content. And I feel like you kind of answered a bit of this question, but like I would just go ahead and ask. You said like, why did you choose like salvation or Christ?
Hey. Hey, yo, hey. Um, like I was saying before, I started having, it wasn't just a physical thing, it became a spiritual thing. And it's hard to explain that part because every individual has their own thing that they deal with spiritually. Whether you fail to acknowledge or not, we all deal with it. But it's not until then, and I came to the realization that God is different, Christ is different, and I have to pick a side because me staying lukewarm is not taking me nowhere. To be honest, I had to be real with myself.
Yeah.
I just had to be real with myself, and that's really what motivated me to. It wasn't because I asked them for a new car or a new house, or no. It was just simply because I just want to be able to touch other people. I want to be able to impact this world, and say that yes, I did something prior to me like leaving. So that's my main thing. I don't want to be like everybody else. So that was just my main thing.
Yeah, and I think you just like mentioned something that drew me back a little bit. Um, I think I really remember like saying this prayer like every single day that, God, like I want my life to be an impact to somebody else, but I don't want to like I don't want to see it happening. Like you just go ahead and do it. And like I remember one time I was on the phone like with an old friend, and like he was like, I've never mentioned this to you before, but like I was struggling like in my walk myself, like I was in the world and whatever. And when I decided to like kind of like get back to that route, I really just started looking at you. And every single day I kind of like looked at you from afar, and like your lifestyle just started speaking to me. And I was like, thank God, because I've always wanted my life to speak out to people without me being the one to speak out. And like that was like really great, because for me it was great because I realized like, oh, like so all this name calling, whatever thing that's going on, I'm doing something. Like maybe I'm not seeing that I'm improving, like I'm not seeing that, okay, like my life is actually doing something, I'm living a purpose. But to someone else, like it's blessing their life. Like for somebody to say that, oh, I'm able to like get back on my feet, I'm able to like realize you are the same person that I was living that life with, and you've been able to like push yourself to get to this point, then that means I have like a chance to also get there. So that really did encourage me that, okay, like I have to like keep pushing, because like God is really working on me, and while he's working on me, he's using my life to work on someone else as well. So like, you're out there, if you feel like, your life is not doing anything, if you feel like you're not living your purpose, trust me, someone else is looking at your life. I remember today I saw a quote, somebody wrote a quote like in the bathroom and say, you gotta stay strong because you never know who you are impacting indirectly. So no matter how you feel, no matter how like you're out there, you feel like your life is not doing anything. Trust me, somebody's looking at you from a distance, and your life is impacting them without you knowing. So keep pushing, keep staying faithful, keep serving the Lord with your life, and God is definitely going to use you as an ambassador.
Amen.
And there's always this quote thrown around, you're the only Bible somebody might be reading and stuff like that. And that comes back to like you living that life, you staying true to God. Because if you say you're saved and other people around you think you're like, you've told them you're saved, they're expecting something different in your life. You can't be living the same life that they're living, because if you're the only Bible that they're reading, they're looking at you like you're doing the same thing that I'm doing. So how, like, why should I even, why should I follow this God person? Why should I come to this Jesus person? Because you're still like, we're the same thing. We're doing the same thing. So what makes you different from me? But if they see that you're different, you're proclaiming Christ, and you're living differently, then they'll see that there's actually something happening. And you never know who you could be encouraging by, just following Christ and living that life. And sometimes, sometimes it's hard, but that's why there's godly community. If you ever feel like you're shaky or anything like that, you can always go back to your godly community. You can go back to God and the community that you're surrounded with, and they can pick you up. And in that, like, somebody can see you. Let's say if like you did something right, but then you didn't stay and then you picked yourself back up. Somebody else that's struggling can seem like, oh, so it's not hard to pick myself back up, or it's not hard to get back on the right track. Even just because I've fallen does not mean I should keep going that way. And there are times when people that you grew up with or people that you live life with can see you now, at like a certain point in life, and they'll see that this is not the same person that I grew up with.
Yeah.
Something is different about this person. And, that might encourage them to want to get closer to God because they see something different in you. So just keep that focus on God, because if you stray from that, you never know who you might be leading astray as well. If you're focused on God, you might be leading somebody to God. Like the word says, follow me as I follow Christ. So follow Christ while other people are looking at you, because you might lead them to Christ unknowingly. So yeah. So you described your life before salvation. You described why you chose salvation. So what is your life like now after salvation?
It's wonderful, to be honest. I'm at peace. I've never felt this peace in a very long time. It's like you're alone, but you're not alone at the same time. It's like I'm alone, but I'm not lonely, if that makes sense. But I'm just grateful to God, to be honest with you. It's hard to explain. You just know that His unconditional love covers you, His faithfulness covers you, His favor covers you, and things may not work within the time that you want it to work, but He makes everything beautiful at His time, and my time has come. I'm just being honest. My
Go
time
ahead.
has come, It took me 5 years to graduate college. I finally did. I bought the car that I wanted to buy. I'm doing the things that I wanted to do. And those who doubted it, and those who laughed at me, hey. But at the end of the day, all I can say is that though it took time, I'm just grateful to God that I kept within my faith.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, it's so hard when you're going through it, because the waiting period for the things to happen is the toughest for a Christian.
Oh.
Because you're like, God, come on now. Like,
Yeah.
you see, I waited how long? And sometimes it could take months, sometimes weeks, but sometimes it's years.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And the thing is, you don't know the exact time, but when it happens, everything falls into place one by one, and we can all attest to it. And that's just all I can say is I'm grateful. I'm just grateful every single day. Car or no car, I'm still grateful. God knows I'm humble for everything that I've gotten. And even if I don't have anything and I just have Him, I have everything. So.
Yeah, and I like what you mentioned about taking you 5 years to
Seriously.
Let me tell you. Add 2 more years to that. It took me 7.
Oh, Charlie.
Not 5, not 4. 7.
And easy.
So the time to graduate college plus 3 more years. It took me to graduate college, right? And throughout those times, like, even like now, every time I look back at it, I laugh, right? Because
it's all a testimony.
I keep saying yes, because it's also my testimony.
Yeah.
I keep saying that if, let's say, because the reason why it took me 3 years is because I went to community college first.
Me too.
And then, like, when I went to community college, I wasn't really, like, serious. I was just, just doing, I was skipping class to go to the table to laugh, stuff like that. So I realized that, like, after a while of being in school and, like, seeing my life transform, I realized that let's imagine if I had gone to the schools that I had originally applied to, right? If I had first gone, like, because I know I had gotten into one school, my dad said it was too far. There was another school, he was like, it was too expensive, and I was like, so what do you want me to do, not go to school? And I ended up going to community college first, and I was just doing whatever. And then after I transferred to Salisbury is when I rededicated my life to Christ. Right. So I was like, imagine if I had gone to any of those other schools before I went to community, skip community college, just went to those other schools. Like, I can't imagine where my life would be.
Yeah.
I could, 1, be dead. I could, 2, still be living in sin.
No.
I could have, like, made other friends that would lead me, completely different way. So, like, when you say He makes all things beautiful in His time, He really does. Because, like, when I look back, I find it really funny that it took me all this while to graduate college, but by the time I graduated college, I was so like content,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I was so like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was like, you know, like I was content and I had God. That's like number one. I had God. Before my relationship with God, like she said, basa. But by the time I graduated college, it was like, wow, like, you know, I actually have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't gone to Salisbury and met like the people that I met, godly community, you know, if I hadn't met these people to help me along the way, like I probably would have just been doing whatever.
That's true.
You know, and now here I am. I'm sitting here talking to you guys about God.
Praise God.
Imagine that.
Yeah, like you made mention of like when you talked about the waiting period.
Aye.
Like it really drew me back to like the story of Abraham and Sarah, where God like promised them, God revealed to them that, you know, they were gonna have Isaac, but then the release was far from the reveal. You know.
I see what you're doing there.
Exactly. Like I think this thing really sticks to me. It's like a sermon like I heard from the beginning of the year, and it's stuck to me since then. It's like Abraham and Sarah went ahead to make a counterfeit out of the reveal that God showed them rather than waiting for the release. You know, and it kind of like prolonged things a little bit for them. And that's the same thing we do these days. It's like, you know, one thing is like God, it's like we have to give God permission to come in and do what he needs to do. If God reveals this to you, like you said, the waiting period is what we Christians like we don't have patience for at all.
Cry.
It's like, okay, God, you revealed to me that this is gonna happen.
Right.
It's like we want it to like happen like right now. We just don't have the patience to wait. And I feel like that's like our testing moment. Like that's when God is like literally our faith is being tested to see how long like you can wait for something good. And it's just like anything good that comes from the Lord doesn't come like right away. God takes his time to prepare every single thing. And I remember, I think like beginning of this year, like, you know, I was sitting there telling myself, I was like, look, so I think I'm at the point now, like no matter, I was like, God, like, you know, I give you permission to do whatever you want to do. Like at this point, like whatever you want to do, just go ahead. Whatever whatever things you've revealed to me, like, you know, in the back of my head, it's like, God, you haven't even revealed this to me. So whenever the release is going to happen, like, I'm going to be patient. But, like, you know, every single day I have to, like, I realize I'm praying for God to give me patience to wait for it. Because it's just really hard. Like,
It's hard.
really waiting because it's like, okay, God, like, you promised me this. Like, where is it? Like, you know, you heard from him, like, a year ago, and it's still not here. And it's like, look, man, like, you know, time is going. But then it's like we have to understand our time is not God's time.
Nope.
God's time is like much better. So it's like we have to like consistently be praying for patience. And if God, like, you know, if you give something to God for him to take over, you have to pray for him to give you patience. Like when you give it to him, completely leave it to him. It's like don't try to like be thinking about it like all the time, because the more you think about it, the more it's gonna like start like causing your faith to shake and stuff like that. So if you're giving God complete and total like surrender of everything that it's going on or whatever he's even revealed to you, just be patient with yourself. Like move on with your life. Like continue serving the Lord like as you are. Like, you know, work in school, whatever you're doing, just keep moving on. But always remember, God is definitely going to reveal it when the release it to you when the time is right. So,
and I want to add, and it's so important to understand that God has given us the will to choose. You know, God has given us the will to choose what we want to happen in our lives, to be honest. But when you take things in the matter of your own hands, which we all can attest to, there's things that we took matters into our own hands and it didn't go well for us. But when you leave it in God's hands and his timing is perfect, he does things beautiful at his time, you just become so content, so humble. You know, it's not even like prideful. You're just so humble because you feel like, am I that like blessed, you know, like me who I don't really do I really deserve this? You know, am I that privileged enough? Like you just become so grateful. And it's a matter of your will or God's will. There is no the same, you know, it's rather yours or God's will. But you choose God's will, you know, like our sister was saying, you have to pray for patience because it's hard. But to be honest, there's some certain things you really do not want to do on your own at all, if not everything. And sometimes another mistake that we do is we pray, and then we will mistakenly say, oh, God said yes, God said yes,
Yeah.
let me go ahead. God said yes. God didn't say nothing. And we just say, oh, the Spirit of God, the Spirit of the Lord said, yeah, I should go ahead. But the Spirit of God never told you should apply to that job. The Spirit of God never told you to go to that school or even do that major. But we just want to take matters into our own hands. And then when something bad happens, we say, why, God? Why? But God never told you to go there, so.
Yeah, and like with what you guys have both said, like when we do things like that, when we take matters into our own hands, we sometimes delay what God has planned for us.
Oh.
Because in order for God to release what He has planned for us, if we take matters into our own hands, we kind of detour from the course, right?
Right.
So He has to now bring us back and then lead us to where He wants. So it delays. It delays what He has planned for us because we decided to go and do whatever. So then He has to fix whatever problem we now went and caused before He can bless us with whatever it was that He was going to bless us with. So just always remember to just let God, God's will over your will, because at the end of the day, your will is going to lead to death.
Hey.
God's will is eternal life.
Amen.
So there's nothing, because you know how the Bible says don't trust, not to trust any man, but put your trust in God, right? And God is not a man that He should lie, and He's not the son of man that He should repent, right? But we are man. We not.
We lie.
We are the son of man.
Yes.
We should repent. So it's we should always keep that in the back of our heads. God's will is always perfect, and it's always good for us. No matter what it is, no matter what you think, no matter what you think would be good for you, God's will is always better. So even if you're sitting here and you're like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this, and I need to do this, and you feel like taking matters into your own hands, don't do it, because at the end of the day, you might lead yourself somewhere that you were never meant to go in the first place. There are people that end up in places where they're not happy because they decided to take matters into their own hands. So let God lead you. And the first step to first of all, before you can let God lead you, you have to be saved. You can't let God lead you if you don't even know who God is. You have to be saved. You have to have Holy Spirit living in you. Then you can, when you're getting that relationship with God, you can you get to know what He likes. You get to know what He dislikes. Then you can hear His voice. However He starts speaking to you, you know when God is speaking to you. So it's not just oh, I heard this, maybe it's God. No, you will know clearly when it's God, right? Then you follow that, because if you just do whatever, and sometimes we get saved and we just we think we're saved and that's it. We think we're saved
and we don't live a righteous life. And I was going to say that when you live a righteous life, believe me, the blessings of God is just different. It's like God just pours down a different set of blessings when you stick to His word, when you do, when you're about His will, and it's just amazing. It's just amazing.
Yeah. You just mentioned after living a righteous life, right? So I'm gonna throw this question out. How do you practically work out your salvation, living a righteous life? How do you practically work that out?
Reading your Bible every day, and I want to put this out there. It's not necessarily about memorizing the Bible verses, please. It's not about quoting them on social media, but it's about understanding what you are reading. It's about reading comprehension, understanding what you're reading, and let it sit in your heart. Sometimes with me, I can read the same Bible verse for days. Oh my God. Because that same, let's just say 3 Bible verses. That same Bible verses or that verse will have at least 5 to 10 different messages. And that, I'm just
so many. Back to back.
But I'm just using hypothetically, but it has so many different messages, and you see it differently because you pray about it. Yeah. You take that scripture, you pray about it, you come back to it, you read it again, and then God reveals more. But it's hard to gain insight of the word, because I would say a majority do read the Bible, but I think the problem is the understanding of the word is the problem of most Christians, and it's because of the lifestyle that we're living. I know me personally, when I was still living that type of lifestyle, that wayward lifestyle, I wasn't understanding the things of God even when I was reading the Bible. And I was reading the Bible more than I do now. Well, I do read it now more, but I'm just saying, like, then I was reading more scriptures. Now I take my time and read small bits at a time, sometimes a chapter at a time. And I don't try to read, like, I'm not going to read the whole book of Esther. No, sometimes I'll read a scripture in Esther, and probably I'll go to Job, and then I'll go to probably Revelations, just to just have a balance. But it's mostly about reading your Bible every day and praying. Prayer is so important. Pray when you wake up, pray before you go to sleep, and always have God in mind in your heart throughout the day. Your heart should be full of thanksgiving and praise. And I think that is what, initially continues on that salvation.
I also wanted to say that, like, on top of praying and reading your Bible, you should learn to die to yourself. Okay? That's how you practice. You can
Kill the
practically
flesh.
practically work out your salvation by dying to yourself every day. So things that you want to do, you have to kill that. So it's like, it's not what I want to do, because like I said before, if you do the things that you want to do, you might end up in something that you might not want to be in, right? Like, let's say you wake up in the morning and, like, okay, let's say that day you forgot to pray. Sometimes when, like, you pray and read your word, it prepares you for the day ahead of you, right? And then, like, if something were to happen in that day, you kind of have that, like, sometimes it doesn't even click to you that somebody just, like, cut you off, or somebody just did this, or somebody just did that, because you're meditating on that scripture and you prayed and you're covered. Like, maybe God revealed something to you, and it has covered you for that, like, situation. But, like, let's say you just wake up and you just go about your day. Somebody might just do the smallest thing. You might just, like, explode on them, right? Yeah. And then with that, it's like, because that's what you want to do. They did this little thing, they annoyed you, so you exploded on them, right? But then that just turns into a situation that you don't even want, because you call yourself a Christian, you call yourself saved, right? But here you are retaliating and doing certain things that if you had killed your flesh, you wouldn't do. Like, there are times, like at work, right? Somebody might say, like, a slick joke or something, and, like, to me, like, I hear it and I'm like, I feel like this is supposed to be offensive. Yeah. But I'm just gonna pretend that it wasn't offensive. I'm just gonna blow it off, right? There are times when let's say somebody would say something, or somebody did something, and one of my coworkers would be like, I'm like, you know what? It's okay. Just keep it moving, because I don't want that to throw me off of anything. Yeah. And especially because at work, people know me as the Christian girl, right? Because like, they all know that I don't drink. They all know I don't cuss. Like, every time people will be cussing around me, and I'm like, and like, no, so it gets to a point where, like, people start apologizing. Like, if somebody cusses around me, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I know you don't cuss.
I literally get that too.
So it's like,
oh man,
because of that, it's like, I'm killing my flesh. Because if somebody, like, before, if I was talking to somebody and they cussed, I'd probably have the tendency to cuss too, or stuff like that. But, like, I kill my flesh and I don't do it, and then they see that consistency. We have to be consistent when we walk, like, to work out our salvation. We have to be consistent. You can't one day say, no, I'm not going to drink alcohol, and then the next day be like, okay, I'm going to take a little sip, because then there you just lost. Like, if you were supposed to save a soul in that group or whatever, you just lost that soul, because they just saw you do that thing.
Right.
So if you say you're not doing this because you're a Christian, you love God, then you continuously not do that thing. So then when they see that consistency, they see that there's actually something different in you. Yeah. Like, one of my coworkers, he I believe he's atheist or something like that, right? He says he believes that there is a
higher power.
Yeah, something
that's
like
what they
that.
usually
And
say.
I remember one time we were going to BCF conference, and I explained to my boss, I'm going to a conference, I'm not going to be here, stuff like that. And they were like, okay. So then they asked me, like, what it was about, and I was like, okay. So we're basically, it's kind of like a church service, but, like, on a bigger scale, and it's like a daily thing, and we're praying, in the presence of God, receiving from God, and all that stuff, and fellowshipping with other people. And he was like, oh, when you go, ask them if, because I know I can't get through the front door to heaven, ask them if I can get through the side door. And I was like,
is that supposed to be a joke?
I was like, how about I just pray for you? Because but the thing is, you see how he made that joke to me? He wouldn't have made that joke to anybody else, but he made the joke to me because, let's say, there are other people at my job that say they're Christian, but then they throw out cuss words and all that stuff. So it's like, it's kind of like iffy to him. He said that to me, and I mean, I explained to him that there's no side door. There's either the front door or the back door. Back door leads to hell. Front door leads to heaven. You pick the one that you want. There's no side door to heaven. So it's just stuff like that. Like when you're consistent in your faith and like you're consistent in your walk, people see that, right? And if anything, like somebody could come to you out of nowhere. You would not expect, certain people to like even approach you knowing anything, and they'll come to you like, oh, I know you're a Christian. I know this and that. Oh, I'm going through this. I'm going through that. And you can save souls, from your walk. So that's why before I said like your walk, your life can be the only Bible somebody is reading. So you have to be consistent. And I feel like to practically work out your salvation, you need consistency. You need consistency in reading the word, consistency in praying, consistency in saying no to your flesh at all times.
Yeah. And I think I would say it's also every single day when you wake up, you have to make a choice. You have to make that decision to die to your flesh. And one thing that I know, like I do every single day, like when I wake up is, when I'm done before I get out the house is, I pray. And, one of the things I say is like, God, I dethrone me of anything that is not of you. Like every single day you have to dethrone yourself of every idol. Like you have to check your heart and see who's sitting on the throne of your heart. If God is sitting on the throne of your heart, he controls everything. Your emotions, like from your emotions to like everything possible, because like you have the right person sitting on the throne of your heart. So if he is sitting in there and he's controlling everything, if this person cuts you and you want to be angry, guess what? You're not going to be angry because you know who's sitting on the throne of your heart. If you feel weak, guess what? God is filling with your strength because he's sitting on the throne of your heart. So every single day you have to be making the decision. You have to be making the choice, to die to your flesh, just like you guys have been saying. And like one of the things that they've been saying that I think I'll hit on again is consistency. Just like think about somebody that's in a relationship or courting somebody. You're consistent in how you're talking to them. You're consistent in how you see them. You're consistent in everything with them. And that's the same way our relationship with God has to be. Like, you have to be consistent. It's like, kind of like see it as you're in a relationship with him. You have to be praying to him like every single day. And when you are in a relationship with somebody, you know what the person likes. You know what the person dislikes. And you know how the person communicates with you. So somebody like she said earlier, it's like, you're not going to come to me and say, oh, God said this, when you know this is not how God speaks to you. So, like, if you are in a relationship, that consistent relationship with him, you know how exactly he speaks to you. So even if you hear something that you know it's not of him, you will know it's not of him. Or, like, one of the other things you can do is just, you consistently ask God to confirm, like, things to you. Like, maybe you heard it today, and, this is how you usually hear from him. But you consistently ask him, oh, if this is truly your will, confirm to me again. And it's not bad like for you to ask God to confirm things to you over and over again. No, it's just you just want to make sure. And consistency, reading your word. And like Ruby was saying like earlier, it's like I feel like one of the things like we Christians do like these days is just more so, oh, I just want to get the word in and just be like, I've gotten the word in. But it's just more so like reading the word with the understanding and meaning. Like she mentioned before, sometimes you can read even just one verse and it can stick out to you for so long. You can keep coming back to the same verse over and over and over again. And that's how reading the word is supposed to be. You're not just supposed to like read and just like read it. If like you read the word today and throughout the day you can't even remember what you read, then you just wasted your whole time. Because when you read the word, you're supposed to apply it throughout the day in your walk. You're supposed to be meditating on the word. And that word like manifests differently like in your life. And I know personally, like days I don't read the word or I don't pray before I walk out the house, it's like things are like a little different. Because like, and also I have a consistency, like I'm consistent with when I pray, when I read my word, and where I pray. I have a place of prayer. So if I do anything differently from how I do things, it's like there's something a little bit off, like with how my day goes. So and like Ruby also mentioned before about like that whole like reading like short things just to really understand. I remember like I think it was a season of my life where I was like, oh, I'm going to read this book, because like every time, I think whenever I get to a different season, God gives you a word, a word like to stay in that season with. And I quite remember I was like, I'm going to read the book of Jeremiah. I stuck on Jeremiah chapter, like, I don't remember what chapter it was. I was stuck on that chapter for a whole month because every single time, like, I read a verse, like, that verse, God would keep drawing me back to that same verse over and over again. And it's like he was telling me something different every single time. Like, every single time I'll go back to, like, read that verse. And it was like, I decided to read that whole chapter, like that whole book for a month. But I ended up reading one chapter for a whole month because there was a reason and a purpose as to why God was doing that. So be consistent with your word. Being consistent in your relationship with Christ. Be consistent in having fellowship around you. And with fellowship, I think sometimes it's hard for people to stay in fellowship only because people don't like to be rebuked. Yeah. One of the things a lot of people don't like is being rebuked. And that's the reason why they don't like staying in fellowship. And being rebuked is like they rebuke you out of love, because it's like better them rebuking you than you going outside for someone else to rebuke you, because if they're rebuking you, they're rebuking you in the right way. They're not rebuking you because they feel like, maybe they don't like you or something like that, but they're rebuking you because you are in fellowship with them, you're in a godly community with them, and it's like if you go wayward and they don't say anything, it will come back to them, like no matter what. So be consistent.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add on to what you had said before about how you have a place of prayer as well, and like you have like when you do things. It's good to have like the set times and everything that you do it so you don't fall off the routine. But it's also good to know that that's not the only time that you can pray and read your word. So just because, let's say, maybe I woke up late or something and I missed the time that I was going to read my word and pray, does not mean because I missed the time I'm not going to do it for the day and wait till tomorrow. You can still fit it in your day, and just because I'm not, let's say if your place of prayer is like in your closet or somewhere in your house, right? If you're away from home for a couple of days or weeks or something, that doesn't mean I shouldn't pray because I'm not in that place of prayer. You can pray anywhere, but it's good that she has that place for that quiet time and everything. But that does not mean that's the only place you can do anything. You can literally pray anywhere.
Yeah.
It does not matter where, you can pray anywhere. But our time is like running, so I'm gonna ask one more question, and Patricia, you can ask a question if you would like after, and then we could try to wrap things up. But would you call yourself perfect? Why or why not?
Never. Never. I would never call myself perfect. I'm not even striving for perfection. I'm just trying to do better than I used to. I'm not even trying to be better than my neighbor. I'm just trying to be better than the old Ruby. And that's just my motivation. I see where I used to be and where I don't ever want to go back to be. So, yeah.
And to add on to that, because I asked that question because sometimes people believe that once I'm saved, once I say I'm a Christian, like I should I should never sin. I should never do this. I should never do that. And then once they do, they feel like, oh, maybe I'm not saved. Oh, maybe this, maybe that. But that's just telling you that we are being made perfect. We are not perfect, but we are being made perfect by the one who is perfect.
Yeah.
So it's like even if you even if you fall, that doesn't mean that's the end of your salvation. That's the end of it for you. You can always get back up. God is always there. Like he's always with his arms like this. If you run away, he's always there to like open his arms for you to come back. So just because you're not perfect, I'm not perfect. She's not perfect.
None of us are perfect.
Nobody's perfect, but God is perfect.
Amen.
He is making us perfect. So just because you feel like you have not reached a certain level of perfection does not mean you're not doing anything with your life or you're not doing anything with your salvation. Still keep following Christ, because at the end of the day, he is making you perfect.
Amen.
We probably will never we will never attain perfection in this lifetime.
Nope.
But once we get our glorified bodies, after death, we'll be there. But until then, don't strive for perfection. Just strive to follow God. Strive to just look at Jesus, because if you strive for perfection and you fail, it will feel like everything is falling apart. It's like, why am I even doing this? Let me just go back to what I was doing. But that's not how it is. Just continue to look to Jesus. Even if you fall, get back up and look the same direction you were looking. Don't turn sideways or anything like that. So that's what I was saying.
Yeah, and just to quickly add up to what she said, it's just understanding, we're not perfect at all, and you are working to be Christ-like, and you can't take Christ out of the equation, because if you take him out of the equation, you can't help yourself in this walk. You need God, like, to be able to help you, like, in this walk. And like I like how she clarified earlier about like what I was saying, like having a place and a time. And also just to add up to that, it's just you can do all of these things at any time. You don't want it to become a routine, like But I have incorporated it in my life, so it's become like a lifestyle, like something I'm so used to doing. But you can do all of this like at any time, like she said earlier too. What if like you go somewhere like away from home? I mean, when I travel or go somewhere else, my routine it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want it to become a routine because when it's a routine, then it's not it's not a part of your life. But you want everything you do in this walk to become a part of your life. And then also, like she mentioned earlier, and I'll add to that as well, is look straight ahead of Christ. Do not look left. Do not look right. Do not look in any direction. Like don't focus on what other people are doing, or don't even focus on maybe like Kojo like got saved like what yesterday and their life is better than my life and I got saved like 2 years ago and my life is not perfect. Everybody's walk is different. Everybody's journey is different. Look to Christ, seek Christ always, add God to your equation always. God is the only one that can replenish you when you're getting weak. Just remember, because you've been saved doesn't mean you will never fall. You will still fall because guess what? We're humans and we are born into sin. You'll fall, but God's grace is sufficient for us. Just always see God and remember, God is the ultimate goal.
Amen.
Like living that. Amen.
So, do you have anything that
Last
you would like
minute.
to leave the audience with before we wrap up?
Sure. Jesus loves you. Jesus is the only answer. He's the way, the truth, and the life, and no one can come to the Father except through him. Just know that there's someone who created you, which is God Almighty, who created you with purpose and meaning. There's no one like God. There's no one like Jesus who's willing to accept you just as you are. And it doesn't matter whether you're living a wayward lifestyle or you don't know God. It's never too late to get to know Christ. It's never too late to rededicate your life to Christ. And know that we're always struggling as Christians as well. Trials and tribulations, we're always struggling day in and day out to try and beat our flesh, to be better than what we used to be. So just continue to be blessed and know that God loves you.
Yeah. Anything you want to add?
So, we'll end our show here today, and I'll toss it over to my co-host to give some acknowledgments.
Yeah, so before we end the show, I would like to thank our guest, Ruby, for being here today. I would like to thank you all, the viewers. Without you, the show can, move on. And God bless you all for always tuning in, for your questions, for your contributions. We would like to thank our producers, our technicians, and our empowerment, our team. Not all of them are here. We say wherever you are, God bless you. And we would like to thank our national head, our regional head, and our pastor, and Mrs. Pastor Elvis Boatin, Mrs. Boatin, and to the whole church, we say God bless you all. Have a great evening and tune in again next week. We are continuing the last series, the last episode for this series. We will also be doing testimonies next week before we move on into a whole new series. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss anything. Have a blessed evening. Bye.
Bye.